The marriage thing is very weird, Liz says to Andrew. They're standing on her roof with snow billowing around them in sheets. They've come up to the roof for the shock of it, after a night that just rolled off the time spool. My God, Andrew, it's 4 in the morning. Oh shit, Andrew, how did it suddenly get to be 5:30? We've got to get some sleep. They'd been too high to have sex. But there were moments during the night when it seemed to Liz that she was explaining herself entirely. That she was able to hold her very being in her outstretched palms and say, here I am. Here is the golden box, all tricked open, every hidden drawer and false bottom released. Here's my honor and my generosity. Here are my wounds and my fears, the real as well as the imaginary. Here is what I see and think and feel. Here's my acuity and my hope and my, we've turned a phrase, here is the meanness of me. The tangible but inchoate entity that shifts and buzzes within the flesh. The central part that simply is. The part that finds it wonderful and appalling and strange to be a woman named Liz, who lives in Brooklyn and owns a shop. The unnamed and unnameable. That which God would recognize after the flesh has fallen away. Really, who needed to have sex? Now she's quieting, turning, reconnecting with a mix of sorrow and gratitude. To her more corporeal self, the self that still blazes with its own light and heat, but is tethered by all the sinewy little strings. The self that's capable of pettiness and irritation, skepticism and needless anxiety. She's no longer aloft, no longer spreading a star-studded cloak over the nocturnal woods. She's still full of mingled magic, but she's also a woman standing on a roof with her much younger boyfriend, pelted by blowing snow, a denizen of the ordinary world. Someone who might say that the marriage thing is very weird. I don't know, Andrew says. Do you really think so? He is uncanny in the snow-blown dawn, luminously pale as a Giotto saint, snowflakes caught in his cropped red hair. Liz passes through a queasy little thrill of astonishment. This boy loves her. Will leave her. She knows that he's too young. Imagine being 28. And 53-year-old Liz Compton will figure in this still nascent life for as long as she's able to. She doesn't mind. She doesn't really mind. And besides, he's here now, glassy-eyed from the night, wrapped in one of her blankets, princely porcelain in the early light. She says, oh, well, I get it, but I don't think they'd be getting married if she was well. I guess really, I wonder if it might be embarrassing for her, like taking a sick child to Disney World. Too cynical, Liz, too harsh, stay with the night world. Speak to this boy in the language of kindness he speaks to himself. He says, I know what you mean, but I think, if I was really sick, I wouldn't mind if, somebody wanted to declare his love like that. Oh, I suppose I wonder how much Tyler is doing this for Beth and how much he's doing it for himself. Andrew looks at her uncomprehendingly. His drugged out eyes are bright but depthless, little blue coins. Liz says, well, what I mean is I wonder if Tyler wants to feel like he's done everything he can for her. Like, he not only didn't abandon her when she got sick, he fucking married her. Andrew continues staring at her with those agate, barely animated eyes. Is she talking too much? Is it possible that in their night-long orgy of conversation, she's been boring him? Was the bestowed treasure really just a woman of a certain age going on and on and on? Yes, the bonds of the flesh are back. Here again are the doubts and the little self-mutilations. Nasty, but oddly comforting as well. So familiar are they? How can anyone stay high all the time? How could anyone bear the raw, blinding beauty of it? Maybe, he says. I mean, I don't know him that well. He's shutting down. She's exhausted him. Still, she's not quite ready to let it go. The ragged ends of the glorious night. The conviction that everything can be understood and praised. Let's go back inside, she says. She is losing something precious up here in the snowy dawn. It's almost as if the wind is blowing her expansiveness away, her belief in transfiguration, and leaving only the stones of her skepticism, her hard little pellets of peevishness. No, wait a minute, Andrew says. I think, she waits, he's working something out. He's no Schopenhauer. He doesn't need to be. Though she does wonder what it would be like for him when his slow-eyed, stately youth, the whole boyish thug saint thing, starts slipping away. When he's no longer crackling like this, with the confident languor of fresh beauty. How many people will wait for him to finish a thought? He stands snow-sparked, berobed, waiting to decide what it is he thinks. He says, I think people worry too much. I think we should go ahead and make mistakes, like we should get married, we should have babies, even if, our reasons may not all be that noble and pure. I think maybe if you end up noble and pure all your life, you end up, well, pretty much alone. Not bad, man-child. If Liz thought there was any possibility. No, she's 2 years younger than his goddamn mother. She hasn't done the traditional older woman things with him, has she? She hasn't given him certain books to read, taken him to certain movies or lectures. She frankly prefers him untutored, heartbreakingly earnest, stitching his thoughts together clumsily. It's too easy to believe that this boy is different, that he's an old soul. Better to have fun with a mother here. Maybe, she answers. That might very well be true. Hey, are you shivering? A little. Let's go back down then, she says. She leans over and kisses his cold lips. She makes breakfast for him, like a farm wife. It's a little sexy. It isn't unsexy. She could be a substantial woman, firm-featured, nobody's fool, stirring the eggs in the iron skillet, living in a house fastened to a chirping green fastness. A woman too ample, too sure-footed for the winds to worry. Smarter than her man. Cagier. Lacking perhaps his garrulous two-stepping charm, but possessed of a profound sureness, the depths of which he can barely imagine. When she plunks Andrew's breakfast down in front of him, he exhales a plume of smoke through his nostrils and drapes a sinewy arm around her hips. She plucks the cigarette from his fingertips and takes a drag just for the sexy mama-ness of it. Expertly, she flicks the butt into the sink. Eat, child, she says. You're not having any? I'm still too high. That's not exactly true. But now, right now, coming down, she feels modest. She feels maidenly. She is no longer buzzingly aloft, no longer spreading a star-studded cloak over the nocturnal woods. She's a woman in a kitchen with a rather younger boyfriend, a denizen of the ordinary world. Someone who might say the marriage thing is very weird. He chows down doggishly, pleased with food. Snow taps on the window panes. He says, I should have slept some. I've got an audition this afternoon. You'll be fine, she answers. Is there anything about which she wouldn't reassure him? That's how little she cares. She strokes his cropped red hair, fingers the line of silver hoops in his ear, which inspires in her a minor spasm of fondness and pity. She knows where he's headed. She feels guilty, a little guilty about knowing it, but what can she do? Warn him? Tell him how his blunt-faced beauty will erode, how the whole thug-saint thing works at 25, but he will abandon his already rather vague and haphazard ambitions to be an actor. He'll come to his senses, as people do. He'll marry, live in a house or apartment somewhere. Whereas Liz, if she has anything to say about it, and she has something to say about almost everything, will be a staunch and rather intimidating old woman in sunglasses, gray hair pulled back tight, still raking it in, still seeing boys, all the more bemused by their ephemeral conviction that they are the winners in the world. Just as the farmer must discover, to his great surprise, that his heart will explode before he reaches 70, and that his wife will roll on for another 30 years or more, serene and majestic as the freight trains that have been sending their distant, oboe-like horn moans across the dark fields for as long as anyone can remember.